You are scrolling through your phone late at night. A video autoplays. A digital face turns toward the camera. It smiles. Something in your chest tightens before your brain even knows why. You close the app. You cannot explain what just happened. But the real answer is far stranger than a bad video. Your brain has a rule, an ancient one. It has been running quietly for hundreds of thousands of years, and it just fired without asking your permission. That rule is simple. Anything that looks almost human, but not quite, is dangerous. Scientists call this the Uncanny Valley. The term was coined in 1970 by a Japanese robotics professor named Masahiro Mori. He noticed something odd while designing robots. As a robot became more human-like, people liked it more. Warmer, friendlier, more trustworthy, but only up to a point. Right before a robot became fully human, something flipped. Comfort collapsed into revulsion. A robot that was 90% human felt worse than one that was 40% human. Mori plotted this on a graph, and where the line dropped, it dropped hard. He called that dip the valley. And the valley is not a metaphor. It is measurable. It shows up in brain scans. It shows up in heart rate. It shows up in the pit of your stomach. Why would evolution build a warning system this specific? Think about what your ancestors actually needed to survive. Not abstract danger, specific danger. A predator hiding in tall grass, a stranger from another group approaching the fire, a member of your own tribe who looked sick or possessed or dead. Your brain did not evolve to process robots or CGI faces. It evolved to process other humans, constantly, in fine detail, because getting another human wrong could get you killed. A friend or an enemy, a healthy body or a diseased one, a living face or a dead one. Researchers at the University of California, San Diego, led by cognitive scientist I.C. Sagan, put people in brain scanners and showed them three things: a human, a cartoonish robot, and a realistic android that looked almost, but not quite, human. The cartoon robot barely registered as strange. The brain treated it like a machine, filed it away, moved on. But the almost human android lit up a very specific region, the parietal cortex. This is the part of your brain that compares what you expect to see with what you are actually seeing. When those two things clash, the parietal cortex does not stay quiet. It sounds an alarm. Your brain expected a human. It got something that moved slightly wrong, blinked slightly wrong, breathed slightly wrong. And that mismatch is not treated as a minor error. It is treated as a threat. Here is the deeper layer. For most of human history, an almost human face meant one of a few very specific things: a corpse, a person in the final stages of a fatal illness, someone your ancestors' own instincts flagged as not quite alive in the way they should be. Anthropologists studying pre-industrial societies have documented a consistent pattern. Across dozens of unrelated cultures, corpses, and the severely ill trigger avoidance behavior that looks remarkably similar to modern uncanny valley reactions. Wide eyes, a step backward, a refusal to make eye contact. This is not learned. Infants as young as a few months old show measurable distress when a caregiver's face goes still and unresponsive, a phenomenon developmental psychologists call the still face effect, first documented by Edward Tronick in the 1970s. A living human face is never fully still. It micro-adjusts constantly. The eyes track, the mouth shifts. Blood moves beneath the skin in ways that change color almost imperceptibly. Your brain has spent your entire life calibrating against that baseline, millions of data points, refined every single day. So when something breaks that baseline, even slightly, your brain does not shrug it off. It treats the break as information. Possible sickness, possible death, possible danger. This explains something odd about horror films. The most effective monsters are rarely alien creatures with no resemblance to humans at all. The most effective monsters are almost human. A grinning doll, a twitching corpse that sits up too fast, a face with eyes just slightly too far apart. Horror directors have understood this instinctively for decades, long before Mori ever named it. Now push this forward into the present. Every year, computer animation gets closer to photorealistic humans. Every year, robotics engineers build androids with softer skin, smoother joints, more convincing eye movement. You would think this should make audiences more comfortable. Instead, it often does the opposite. A famous case study is the 2004 animated film The Polar Express. Critics and audiences reported a strange discomfort watching the human characters, despite enormous technical effort to make them lifelike. Reviewers described the characters as unsettling, even ghostly. The animation was not bad. It was almost good enough. And almost good enough is precisely where the valley lives. The same pattern shows up in modern AI, deepfake videos, voice clones, hyper-realistic avatars. Researchers studying human reactions to AI-generated faces have found that people can often sense something is wrong even when they cannot consciously identify what. A 2021 study published in Cognitive Research found that participants rated AI-generated faces as less trustworthy than real photographs, even when asked to rate faces they believed were entirely real. Something in the visual processing pathway flags the mismatch before conscious reasoning catches up. This is worth sitting with for a moment. Your brain is running threat detection on a face before you have any conscious opinion about it at all. There is a second layer to this fear, one that goes beyond death and disease. Psychologist Sarah Rutherford Morrison has argued that the uncanny valley may also be tied to something closer to home, the fear of losing what makes you human. An android that looks and moves almost exactly like a person raises an uncomfortable question underneath the surface. If something without a mind can imitate a mind this well, what actually makes you different from it? That question does not stay abstract for long. It becomes personal fast. Because your sense of self, your sense of being a unique, conscious, feeling person, depends partly on the assumption that consciousness looks a certain way. When something without consciousness perfectly mimics the outward signs of it, that assumption cracks slightly, and your brain does not like cracks in its own foundational beliefs. So the discomfort you feel is not really about the robot, or the CGI character, or the digital avatar. It is about the questions that thing forces you to ask, quietly, underneath your everyday awareness. Is that alive? Is that safe? Is that even real? And underneath all of it, quieter still, what actually makes me real? Engineers working on humanoid robots today are keenly aware of this valley. Many deliberately choose not to build robots that look fully human. Companies like Boston Dynamics have leaned into obviously mechanical designs, not because the technology to look more human does not exist, but because a robot that looks 80% human unsettles people far more than one that looks 20% human. It is often safer, both commercially and psychologically, to stay clearly on one side of the valley rather than attempt to cross it. Some researchers believe that as technology improves further, the valley might eventually be crossed entirely. A robot indistinguishable from a human in every visible and behavioral way might loop back around to feeling comfortable again, simply because your brain would stop detecting any mismatch at all. Mori himself suggested this in his original theory, but we are not there yet. Right now, in this decade, almost every advanced humanoid robot and every hyper-realistic digital human still sits somewhere in that dip. Close enough to trigger the alarm, not close enough to silence it. Think back to that video on your phone. The digital face that smiled a half second too smoothly. Your discomfort was not irrational. It was not a glitch in your thinking. It was hundreds of thousands of years of pattern recognition doing exactly what it was built to do, protecting you from something that looked like one of your own, but was not quite. You are still that same animal from the savannah, still scanning every face for the subtle signs of life, sickness, kinship, and threat. The only thing that has changed is what you are scanning. Tonight, when a video autoplays and a digital face turns toward the camera and smiles, you will feel that same ancient alarm fire quietly in your chest. And now you will finally understand exactly what it is trying to tell you.